Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos, and today we have a player housing video. So me, a couple of other WoW creators, and some game journalists got flown out by Blizzard to play with player housing, the current beta version that they have, internal. I think the first time anybody outside of the company got to test it out. It was super sick, very cool, and I'll tell you more about my thoughts on that. We also got a dev interview, which I teamed up with Preach to record a dev interview, so that'll go up on his channel. There may have been some audio issues. They're trying to figure that out, so hopefully it ends up turning out okay. Whenever I wake up, I'll put a link in the description to that video, or you just go find Preach's YouTube channels and it's on one of them. Okay, so they also gave us some B-roll footage, and that would be what would be playing back here, except I actually think it's interesting enough and instructive enough that I wanted to just talk over it as if it wasn't B-roll footage and as if it was like the main event here for a while. So let's start off with that. So this is the footage that we have of player housing. So first of all, I'm going to pause this thing a lot to show you what we're looking at here. So this is the Alliance player housing zone. We didn't actually get to go outside in the test that we did. We were just inside. The way it works is that houses are instanced and the neighborhoods are instanced. And the neighborhoods are persistent. So, I mean, this has been in their posts already, but if you're in a certain neighborhood with certain neighbors, you will stay in that neighborhood with those neighbors until you or they decide to move. It's not like, going outside to Duratar and you might end up in a random shard each time. It's not like that at all. It's a pretty persistent place, although you can move to, join a different neighborhood if you want to get in one with your friends or your guild or your community. And then there are also public ones and all that stuff. So this is the Alliance one. This is it's like a Westfall, Elwyn, Duskwood a little bit kind of vibe. And the way it works is you have your house with your plot, and you can decorate the outside and the inside, and the inside doesn't have to match the outside. You can go inside like a house and then just have a huge tower inside, although not that huge. Their current limits that they have are 10 rooms and 3 stories is what you can do inside your house, and you can make rooms of all different sizes and stick them together however you like. So it is a very robust tool for doing that. So let's keep watching this. So this is some of the outside here. Here's somebody's house over there, somebody's house over there. People fishing in the river. People walking by and waving at each other. There's another person's house. Let's see what else we've got going on in this footage, because I think we're going to get to go inside soon. But yeah, you can decorate the outside to look kind of however you like. So here's an outside house decorated. We didn't actually, again, get our hands on this, but these are decorations, these vines and stuff, all the kind of doodads you can see. Make your house look however you want. Like a little tent back here that I guess my head is sort of obscuring. Ooh. Yeah, you can see back there, down there, the little tent thing that they've got going on this one. So yeah, you can make the outside look cool. You can get that little fountain and stuff like that. But then the inside was what we actually got to play with ourselves. And I got to take 3 screenshots with me of the inside that I built, which are not as pretty as the insides that they built. But here you can see the inside of this tavern thing that they've got going on. And all of this you could do. All of this we could do with the... with what they gave us, right? Which was, there's probably a couple hundred decorations available. So this is a room. These pillars, you can get anything and spin it around however you want. So I think these support things that are diagonal here is just this wooden pillar, but turned sideways. You get, a tusk with a lantern on it. These chandeliers. Now, in the build they gave us, the lighting was kind of scuffed, so a lot of the things that were supposed to emit light didn't. These chandeliers were among the few things that actually correctly gave off the right amount of light, but this was a very early alpha build, so it was extremely... There was a lot of stuff that was, kind of scuffed, but you could see what they were going for, and I'm not too worried about those. But yeah, you could do a lot of cool stuff with this. You could, shove things further into the ground, so these things that they're using here as seats. I don't know what asset this is, but... they could maybe there's more stuff that's underneath them that they've just hidden, or you could squish these even further onto the ground if you wanted just a little padded, fur seat, something like that. You could do all kinds of stuff. One of the demonstrations they did, they took these tankers and pushed them far enough down into the countertop that it looked like just a circle on a grill. So they just had 3 of these tankers pushed far enough down into a counter that they looked like the circles of a gas stove. So a lot of options like that. In fact, one of my screenshots that I will show you, demonstrates that thing. You can see also Anixia's head is over here. The goal is going to be for there to be a lot of trophies that you can put into your house from doing stuff like killing Onyxia, from basically anywhere that loot drops from. And yeah, I'm kind of assuming a lot of knowledge from those blue posts already in this. So if you want to watch, I've made videos reading through all the housing blue posts so far. I'll try and remember to put a card up to link you to those. But yeah, Onyxia's head was the only one that was implemented in the build that we got to play. Let's see the next room that they show off here and see if there's any more stuff that I can mention from that. So, okay, here's a room. These floating books are really cool. This is like, I think this was the coolest decoration thing that they had. There's like a floating book tornado thing where they kind of rotate around like that. A lot of people that I saw were using that in their houses. But you can see what they're doing here. So there's like a staircase room that is the default that they're working with here. And all the rooms have the walls behind them. And the walls, there were actually only 5 different variations for wallpaper that were in this build. I hope there will be more later. But what a lot of these footage that you're going to see here, what they did is they made the walls look different by just sticking stuff in front of them. So they just put these bookshelves in front of those walls. And you can see the bookshelves actually have different books in them. Like here, there's, you know, a goblet and then a couple of books and then a sideways book. And you can do that, right? Like take this book, turn it sideways and do that. Like this, that is all, you can make it look like that if you want, which is very cool. And okay, next one here. So yeah, you can see that the book, floating book tornado. You can just leave things in the middle of the air if you want. You can drag stuff up and down and just have stuff floating wherever you want. You can shove things into the walls, into the ceilings, into the ground, or into the floor, wall, ceiling a little bit, although not all the way into the wall. And they actually have some pretty cool tech for this. So you'd be a little worried about shoving something through the ceiling or through the floor and then seeing it on the floor above or below. But they have like a buffer between all the floors. So it's like, you know, the room, and then there's like a couple of feet of empty space between that and the next room that is built into it. So you don't accidentally see the, you know, whatever you're shoving into the floor or the ceiling for effect doesn't show up unless you go really ham with it into the next room. You can also scale up and down all of these things. They had it's from 0% scale all the way up to 200%. Now, 200% didn't actually feel, there were some things where I wish I could scale them up past 200%. And you could also dye most of these things, not all of them. So the way it seemed to work was that a lot of the like vanilla assets or TBC assets weren't dyeable, but a lot of the more modern assets were. And when we talked to the artists about it, it seemed like it's an issue of like, if this asset, they actually have to go in and map what are the metal bits, what are the wood bits, and then give you those different options to dye them separately. So for instance, this board back here, I believe is a armor or weapon rack that they've got on the wall here. This functionality wasn't in yet, but I assume what they're going for is to actually display your transmogs, your weapons and armor that you've earned over the years on these sorts of decorations. But this is a dyeable piece, so you could go into this piece and dye all the metal. The metal, I think the studs and the wood were the 3 things you could dye, and there's a bunch of dye colors. Like, you could do whatever you wanted. And also, if you dyed a bunch of objects back to back, it would remember the colors you'd used recently and put them near the top of the list, so you could dye everything on a similar palette if you wanted to. Now, not all the objects were dyeable. A lot of the oldest assets weren't, but I think that's something that they're going to continue to work on. The wallpapers also weren't all dyeable, which I think would be a big thing that would help add some more variety with how you can make the walls look, because like all of the walls that look good in these photos are them dropping, they're not actually the walls of the room, but they're putting partitions, putting these extra pieces in front of the actual walls of the room, and that helps them. I think that's a good thing that a lot of good builds will have, because it makes the space more cool and dynamic and 3-dimensional. But when I was playing around with it, I did feel pretty restricted by only having like 5 actual wallpaper choices on the back. Now, again, the entire experience I had with this was like, my appetite was so whetted that I wanted so much more, and they are working on so much more. This is an early build. There's going to be a lot more for a lot of this stuff by the time it actually comes out. So I don't mean to sound negative about any of that, just relaying what my experience was like playing with this. So, okay, let's keep watching through the footage here. Again, the decoration, it was pretty cool. So when you wanted to move decorations around, you could do it in simple mode or advanced mode. Again, they've already talked about this in one of the posts, but the simple mode just lets you could either freeform it or snap to a grid on the ground. The grid displayed very nicely. If you look down at the ground, it would and it would sort of show where you were relative to the nearest walls and ceiling as well. So that worked really nicely. If you put something on top of something and then moved the bottom thing, the thing on top of it would move. So this is a table with a goblet and some food put on top of it. And so you would place the table, and then you could place the goblet and the food on top of it. And then if you dragged the table to move it, the goblet and the food would move with it, which was nice. But I found myself using the advanced mode more often, which gave me a little bit more precision. It has the like 3D program controls, so you get 6 arrows, forward, back, left, right, up, down, on anything that you click, and then you could also change it to have those turn into wheels to rotate it instead, and you get the scaler to resize it. And it was actually very easy to switch between it. You could keybind almost everything to do all of your switching. So if you use this tool a reasonable amount, you'd be able to do a lot of that kind of stuff very easily. Even by the end of just like a couple hours of doing this, I could pretty competently, exert my will upon the surroundings. So that was my experience, at least with that. Here's another room. Again, you can see what they're doing here is just taking some of this this wood pillar, turning it sideways, and then making a beautiful, triangular shaped room thing. So this is not a default thing. This is like the person designed this, and you could design this to look however you wanted. Again, books rotated, lying on the walls. You can see here, just like these are the 3 same books, but rotated in different directions. Looking very pretty. And bookshelves on the walls with some of these drapes over them. Very cool. Very extremely cool experience to see. And we got to see one of the artists like make one of these rooms for 30 minutes, kind of talking through the process. And it was very cool. I think this is going to be one of those things where people who are good at it are going to have a lot of fun, making tutorials and showing off how they got different effects. It reminds me of like Minecraft building where, it's like, oh, you take a stair block and you turn it upside down and now it looks like a stool or whatever, or chairs, those kind of things. Here's another one of these little rooms. Yeah, I'm not going to go too much more into covering stuff that I've already covered for the rest of this B-roll footage. If there's something I noticed that's cool that you wouldn't know, that's not obvious from just looking at it, I'll call it out. Yeah, a lot of these are the same rooms as well. They're filtering back through now. This is a nice one though. There were a lot of paintings, and there are going to be a lot more, I think, as well. This is again that same nice staircase room with the floating book tornado. I think again a lot of us made a lot of use out of the floating book tornado. Some of these things were interactable as well, like the fireplaces you could turn off and on, chairs and stuff you could sit on. So. That was pretty cool. The windows were also one of the few light sources that worked, so that was nice for getting some light. And then, yeah, okay, this looks like the upper floor of the stairs room we saw with, again, more of those books. The bookshelves, again, individually placed. So this is an asset you can see here. Like, this is one of the decorations you could get, this, like, row of books. But then also, so is this individual book, this goblet, this individual book, this little 3-pack or 4-pack of books, I think, as well. And you can sort of see them where they're reusing these ones. And this is with a pretty limited library. Like, you'd be surprised by... This is all the stuff that we had access to. It's a pretty small library in terms of total amount of decorations. It still is a lot, and the amount of options that we had even with that was huge. But when this actually comes out for realsies, there's going to be way, way more stuff because they're in this sort of process now where all the decorations that they make going forward are going to be easy to put into player housing. And they're also sort of going back and taking all these old assets and converting them into being player housing compatible. Because the problem is that a lot of the really old assets in the game, don't have a back or a bottom or something like that because the artist just knew to only use them against the wall or something like that. And now that they want to put them in the player housing system where players can do whatever they want with them, they have to be a little bit more, they have to go back and like retrofit those old assets. But they said if you wanted to have like a vanilla themed house with old low poly stuff, that's going to be an option. You can do that kind of stuff if you want to. The basic idea is that most of the things you might want to do, you could. If you wanted to make like a mage tower feeling thing, you could. If you wanted to make it themed around any different race or class, you could. And then they basically, we had this round table where it was like they were kind of asking us what sort of things we most wanted to see out of it. And the consensus was basically like there's years and years of features that are awesome that people will want added to this, and they will add to it based on sort of in the order that the community wants of, additions and improvements to the player housing tool. I realize I kind of paused there on a little bit of a artifacty frame. We're almost done with the B-roll, and then I can show you the screenshots from my little creations and tell you about the stuff that I made when I was getting to play around with this. Yeah, okay, you can see again. We got some food, some lobster. A lot of us used the lobster because we were in Boston for this, so that made a lot of sense. Okay, let me pull up my thing. Oop, nearly fell off here where I've parked my character for the scenic ambiance of. This is sort of where the horde area is going to be. I don't know if we saw any footage of it in that B-roll, but in one of the present PowerPoints they showed us, there was some either concept art or screenshots from the horde area, and it looked very nice. It was like a sort of Durotar, Ajara, Ashenvale synergy, so that's why I parked my character here. You can't really see anywhere like it in the game world yet, where like those three zones actually all collide, but it was really striking, actually. Okay, so here's my screenshots. We've got, this is a very poorly lit, because I don't think these were giving off the right amount of light, and my room is pretty poorly lit, but you can see I made a jump puzzle. Well, a couple people made some jump puzzles, but I was just playing around with the different objects. So you could stack these blocks on top of each other, and this is just a 3-story tall, like, rectangle that you could just go up and fill with whatever you wanted. You could make a jump puzzle all the way up to the top if you wanted, and that was sort of what I tried to do. So this was actually really hard. I had to nerf it several times because I kept falling off on like this jump and this one over here. But it was pretty fun to make. You just throw some stuff into the wall, take a platform, rotate it, take another platform, rotate it a different way, transform it a different way, stick some stuff together, have like a beam coming out of a platform. And I'm not very good at this. This is something there. The quality of these screenshots, as you can see, is a little bit different than the quality of the B-roll footage. That's why I led with that. But it definitely still was a tremendous amount of fun. Here's some of the different wall stylings. So here, this is like, of the 5 styles of wallpaper / floor paper / ceiling paper that they had. Here you can see some Blood Elf style, which I actually thought the Blood Elf style looked really good. I used it for a lot of my stuff. And then the Night Elf style here. Here's a painting, and I put a window behind the painting, and that's sort of, you can see the square outline of where the window is here, but it's pretty hidden behind there, and it sort of makes the painting glowy. So I thought that was kind of cool. And you can see here some of this room that I made in the background as well. If we zoom in, you can see I've got like a table, put some benches around it. I put some of these orbs on the benches and some candles and food on the table. Again, the lighting in here was not all super implemented and stuff, but and then last screenshot here, we've got, again, this is more of the Blood Elf architecture, wallpaper, floor paper, and here's a book, that book that we saw earlier. I just put it into the wall, and that's now like a wall decoration thing. So I just turned the book around, shoved it into the wall, and that's the limit of the creativity you're going to get from me on this. But that's, the kind of thing you could do where you could take an asset and use it for something entirely different than what it's supposed to be. And I thought it looked good, and it, matched the colors of the Blood Elf stuff pretty well. And then in here, you can see this is actually, we only got to take home 3 screenshots. I took a lot of screenshots, and then they had to pick our 3 favorites. And that was really hard. And I didn't really have a good screenshot in one of the area through here, but I made like a maze. You can make a maze if you want to. I made a maze with these different wall sections that you can drop and spin around and rotate and stuff. So I had a maze room over there, and then this was the stairs up. I sort of did a 3-story tower where the bottom story was Blood Elf themed, and then the middle story was Night Elf themed, and the top one was sort of human-y themed. But, I couldn't show you all that with the screenshots I got to take home, so yeah, you'll have to settle for these. Yeah, it was really cool. It was the kind of thing where playing with it, there was a lot of worry from, the community that the housing was not going to live up to expectations. And I think it definitely is gonna. It was really quite easy to play with and to move these different pieces around. A lot of my work looks pretty bad, but a lot of the work from other people it looked really nice. I was messing around with things and trying to see how much I could break the different things and making my jump puzzle, and then I got frustrated and kept trying to solve my jump puzzle and spent like 30 minutes wiping to some of these jumps and having to nerf them, and so that took up some of my precious time. So fell down that rabbit hole a little bit, but it was a tremendous amount of fun. And yeah, I think the housing is going to be I don't know, I think it's going to be an all-timer as far as WoW features go. I think this is it's going to be something that separates, the first 20 years of WoW from the next 20 years is going to be like the pre-housing era and the housing era. I think they've done a really, really good job with this. It was you could just do almost anything you wanted to. If you had an idea for a house, you could make that a reality, very obviously with the systems that they had. I spent a lot of time like sticking the rooms together in different orders, and that tool was pretty robust. I don't have a screenshot of that, but the like blueprint, floor planner tool that they had was really sick, and you could do all kinds of things with making your house have a different, footprint. And it was pretty generous. Most of the things were, it's not one of those things where you kept like running into a restriction that was annoying. The only thing that happened to me a few times was I wanted to stick something 95% into the wall, and it would only let me stick it like 80% into the wall. That came up a couple times for me. Other than that, I don't know, anything I wanted to do, I could. So that was my experience with player housing. In terms of the questions asked and answered by the devs, there's a lot of stuff you'll get in the interview with me and Preach, and then from the other interviews. There was also a roundtable we got to do with the devs. From that, some of the biggest things that I took away were, this is a midnight feature. This is a feature for Midnight expansion, and it's going to come out sometime in the pre-patch to launch time frame for Midnight. So this is still a ways away. We don't actually know the Midnight release date or anything like that, although my suspicion is that it might be sooner than you would guess from previous expansions, because I kind of get the feeling they don't want to do a Fated season again. That's personal speculation. Heard nothing about that at the actual event or anything like that, so I feel like I should clarify there. But yeah, almost everything about this feature massively exceeded my expectations. It was super fun to play with. I cannot wait for this thing to be live. If you have any questions about how this works, feel free to ask them in the comments below, and I will try and answer as many as at least the ones that, if there's anything that I didn't cover here that I actually know the answer to, I will put the answers to those down below. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Blizzard for flying me out and letting me see all of this. Thanks to Preach for doing the interview with me as well. That was a good time. It was a blast. And see you in the next one. Bye.